Real quick, before we dive in, this breakdown is brought to you by the Every Dollar app. It's a seriously great way to start budgeting for free today. Okay, let's get into it. One of the absolutely hardest parts about building wealth is tackling that nagging feeling in the back of your mind that you're just falling behind everyone else financially. That's crazy, right? If I talk to a 45-year-old, they're almost always going, man, I wish I knew all this stuff when I was 25. But then I turn around and talk to a 25-year-old and they're saying the exact same thing. I just feel like I'm so far behind. And I always hit them with a very simple question in response.
Compared to who? And honestly, that is where everyone gets completely stumped. They usually just pause, maybe sigh a bit and say, I don't really know. I just look at everyone else and assume they're doing better. So today, we're going to talk about what better actually looks like, how to manage it, and how to track it accurately. Because right now, a whole lot of folks are staring at the completely wrong dashboard.
See, people so often look at the wrong metrics. Take a high credit score, for example. We stare at that number, hoping it goes up, thinking, well, if that's high, it means I'm doing great with money. But the reality? It's a totally different story. A high credit score really just proves that you're absolutely spectacular at managing debt. Literally, you can be fantastic at making every single payment on time, juggling all your accounts perfectly, and still have absolutely nothing to show for it when it comes to real, actual wealth. And honestly, that's the scary part.
So what is the magic number you actually need to focus on to know if you're doing well financially, to know if you're actually growing and moving in the right direction? It's your net worth. It's not just the random amount you happen to have sitting in your checking account on a Tuesday. It's strictly what you own minus what you owe, your assets minus your liabilities. So think of your cash, your retirement accounts, the equity in your home, and your vehicles. That's all on the plus side. Then you subtract all of your debts on the negative side.
Let's look at a hypothetical couple. We'll call them Rick and Jen, just to see how this works in practice. So let's say this couple makes $120,000 a year. They've got a nice house worth $400,000, they have $6,000 in the bank, and $42,000 tied up between their retirement and the value of their cars. Now, from the outside looking in, they seem incredibly wealthy, right? They're the absolute envy of the neighborhood with a solid $448,000 in total assets. But hold on, we're not done yet, because we have to map out their liabilities. It turns out they owe $350,000 on that beautiful house, $50,000 in student loans, $15,000 spread across credit cards and personal loans, and another $10,000 on those cars.
When they actually do the accounting math here and subtract those massive debts from their assets, their actual net worth is just $23,000. And this just brilliantly illustrates why it's not all about what you have, it's about what you owe. From the street view, a couple making $120,000 driving nice cars looks like they've totally got it all together. But behind closed doors, they only have $23,000 to their name.
Now, let's step back for a second and look at the macro data. You might hear on the news that the average American net worth is a staggering $1.79 million. And when you hear that, it is incredibly easy to panic and feel like you've been completely left in the dust. But I want you to know right now, that number is a terrible benchmark for your own financial progress. Looking at the average is actually a deeply flawed way to measure how typical people are doing, and here's exactly why.
Think about it like this, okay? If a multimillionaire, let's say Dave Ramsey, walks into a Waffle House, the average net worth of every single person sitting in that restaurant eating scattered, smothered, and covered hash browns instantly shoots up by $100,000. It's crazy, but the ultra-wealthy completely ruin the averages for the rest of us. They skew the math so heavily that taking a simple average tells us almost nothing about the day-to-day reality of the everyday person. That is exactly why, instead of averages, we need to use the median. To find the median, we aren't dividing massive, skewed numbers. We're simply going straight up a list of everyone's net worth from the very smallest to the very largest and cutting it right down the middle. Whatever number is sitting dead center, boom, that's our median. It gives us a much more realistic picture of where everyday people actually stand financially. So let's look at how this builds across different age groups. What we have here is the national median data, or what I kind of like to call the standard suck bar. If you're under 35, the median is just $39,000. By the time you hit that 35 to 44 bracket, it climbs a bit to $135,000. Moving into the 45 to 54 range, after like 20 or 30 years of working, it's still just $247,000. You'd think, as folks reach their retirement years, they'd all be millionaires, right? But look at the 65 to 74 bracket. The median peaks at just $410,000. This is the stark reality for the middle of the pack in America.
Now, the real eye-opener here is comparing that national reality to these aspirational Ramsey targets. Look at this. If you're under 35, the target is $100,000. In your early 40s, you should actually be aiming for $400,000 to $500,000. By your 50s, we're looking at $750,000 to a full $1 million. These targets leverage the power of compound growth, constantly pushing you to actively stack your nest egg.
So by the time you reach retirement age in your 60s and 70s, you're aiming for multimillionaire status, $2.5 million or more. And you know what the best part is? Tracking this stuff actually works. Just a couple of days ago, the team asked the Ramsey audience to drop their net worth numbers in the comments, and wow, they absolutely delivered. For the listeners who actually follow these budgeting and wealth-building principles, their median age was 39, putting them right in that 35 to 44 bracket. And while the national median for that age was just $135,000, the median net worth of these listeners was an astounding $600,000. That's nearly 4.5 times the national median. Unbelievable! See, the entire goal of these targets is to aggressively push you toward millionaire status. And in a massive study of over 10,000 millionaires, the data proved that hitting that milestone doesn't require a lifetime of waiting around until you're 75. For everyday people actively following this structured path, they usually cross that $1 million net worth mark at an average age of just 49 years old. It is an incredibly attainable goal if you stay focused.
But listen, a massive income isn't the magic bullet you might think it is. Yes, of course your income impacts your net worth, but it absolutely doesn't guarantee it. According to some pretty eye-opening data from Goldman Sachs, 40% of people earning over $500,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck. I know, it sounds crazy, but why? Because they are deeply leveraged, up to their eyeballs in debt. They drive the absolute nicest cars, they live in the most expensive homes, and yeah, they can afford all those giant monthly payments. But those exact same payments completely destroy their ability to actually build real net worth. And it's not just the total number. Composition matters immensely. Like, what exactly makes up your net worth? You definitely don't want 90% of your wealth trapped in your house, leaving you house rich but cash poor when it actually comes time to buy groceries or travel. The Millionaire Study revealed a very specific formula for true wealth composition. Basically, you want about 1/3 of your net worth sitting in your home equity and a hefty 2/3 actively building your retirement nest egg and investments. That balance ensures you're building wealth that you can actually use and live on.
Now, if you're watching this and you find yourself sitting below the national average right now, please hear me on this core truth. This is not about moral judgments. You aren't a bad person, and on the flip side, you aren't better than anyone else if your number happens to be super high. Your net worth is simply a financial GPS coordinate. It is just a neutral, honest assessment of exactly where you stand today. And tracking it, well, that's really the only way to ensure you're consistently moving in the right direction for tomorrow. So I'm going to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Jump online, find a free net worth calculator, and plug in your own numbers. Take your assets, your home equity, your retirement, and subtract your debts and liabilities. Ask yourself honestly exactly where are your GPS coordinates starting from today. Are you comfortable with that number? And most importantly, if you don't like the coordinates you're sitting at right now, what exact financial habit are you going to break today to rewrite your destination for tomorrow?